And now it's time for Lefties losing it. First, let's do a welfare check on those US protesters, starting with a grown man losing it at a doll of Donald Trump. Yes, entirely sane behaviour, just like this next protester who claims Hitler and the Nazis got their ideas from America.
My friends, when we think about the Holocaust as our go-to reference point for fascism, I need us to remember it was not born out of 1940s Germany. Hitler and his cronies took notes from America, from our Jim Crow laws, from the oppression of our first peoples, and from our extreme racial segregation. That's where he got the playbook.
Now watch as the members of a movement who preach about kindness and inclusivity kindly call for officers to jump off a building. And the kindness continued after protesters found out which accommodation ICE agents were staying at and held a little demonstration they called No Sleep for ICE. So what are the Democrats doing while all this is happening? Well, they're pushing a bill banning masks for law enforcement, effectively forcing officers to endanger themselves.
And I think the concern is a lot that's happening. There are a lot of people who are engaged in these enforcement actions, and we don't know, are they federal, are they contractors, are they local law enforcement? And so we're requiring that people not have to wear masks except for some very limited exceptions, and that there be identifying information ensures that we know who is involved here.
And despite the violent protest footage we've all seen over the past week, left-wing media still insists they're peaceful. Nothing to see here, folks.
A study from the Media Research Center shows that from June 11th to the 12th, CNN and MSNBC personalities insisted the anti-ICE demonstrations were peaceful 211 times.
Say it one more time.
211 times they were peaceful.
You'd think at this point lawmakers would be trying to calm public hostilities, but some are doing the exact opposite, like Democrat North Carolina State Representative Julie Von Hafen, who posted a video on social media that included this image of the No Kings protest, of a sign that read, "In difficult times, some cuts may be necessary," with an image of a guillotine and 2 decapitated heads. Classy stuff. She later posted a message condemning political violence, and her X account is now inactive. And here is Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson saying he will continue to resist.
You've never seen a society improve or expand under this type of fear. And we're going to continue to resist, and we're going to do it in many different ways, whether it's taken to the streets or to the courts.
I wonder what he means by taking it to the streets. And some Democrats are even calling for the police to tip off illegal immigrants before ICE raids happen. Here is LA City Councilwoman Imelda Padilla.
Can we use technology like AI technology to create a situation where your department can identify, hey, there's agents, non-city of LA, in a neighboring town, everyone go on alert in a way where you can support our business community and our immigrant community to know that it's time. That's something related to the lack of due process, the lack of warrants is about to hit our town.
You can't make this stuff up. Even LAPD Chief Jim McDonnell seemed fed up with the lunacy.
So you're asking me to warn you about an enforcement action being taken by another agency before it happens?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't do that.
Why not?
That would be obstruction of justice. You may want to talk to the city attorney about that.
And if you've ever wondered how these protests have become so violent, you need to look no further than lefties who have time and time again called for exactly that.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
Enemies of the state.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite.
How do you resist the temptation to run up and wring her neck?
The biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized up to the right.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Joining me now is Sky News contributor Kosha Gada. Kosha, Trump has warned residents of Tehran to evacuate immediately, then left the G7 early because of the Middle East. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has confirmed the US is sending more forces to the region. What do you think the level of US involvement will be in this conflict now? And do you think the US will give Israel the bunker buster bombs it needs to properly damage Iran's nuclear capabilities?
Caroline, great to be with you. You know, that is the central question on everybody's mind right now. And honestly, it is a difficult one to answer because it is exposing a clear divide in American politics right now, and particularly on the right of the Trump base, Trump's electorate and his constituency. And that is that by and large, they are very supportive of Israel's sovereignty, Israel's right to defend itself and to do what it deems is in its national interest. I think there's full agreement there. But where that line starts to break and the divide appears is what the level of U.S. involvement should be. And Trump's core base is staunchly opposed to it. They are war-weary. The U.S. is coming off of 20, 25 years of really failed or very anemic interventions in the Middle East, don't want to get dragged back into it. And then the question is, if you start to give a little bit of artillery or these types of bombs, is that defensive or offensive? Is that taking us down the slippery slope of greater involvement? And right now, that does not seem to be where the mood of the country is. And I would have to think that it's not where Trump's instincts are based on everything he's ever said throughout his 10-year political campaigning career and even before that.
Yeah, it's such a hard one for him to straddle, especially with his base, as you point out, because if he does nothing and he doesn't help Israel, then will Iran be able to progress with its nuclear plans and become a threat to the whole world, including the US and the rest of us? You know, there have been these stunning allegations that have come out as well from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who's accused Iran of actively planning to assassinate Trump, who the Iranian regime had identified, he said, as a threat to its nuclear program. Take a look.
They want to kill him. Look, he's enemy number one. He's a decisive leader. He never took the path that others took to try to bargain with him in a way that is weak, giving them basically a pathway to enrich uranium, which means a pathway to the bomb, padding it with billions and billions of dollars.
Kosha, is this Israel trying to get more help from Trump in this conflict? Or do you think this could actually explain all the unanswered questions that still linger over the 2 assassination plots against Trump?
You know, it's another example of where it's so tricky or even impossible to know that for sure. In the fog of war that we're in, you know, there are lots of reports out there, some conflicting, some true, some untrue, some partially true. And the reality is that we will never know probably the true extent of how much is true or not in there. But it is certainly conceivable. I mean, we know that many people have tried to and continue to try to assassinate Trump or any leader, especially him, because he has taken a different approach for many, many issues globally and domestically. And it's a violent world out there. So it is certainly not outside the realm of possibility. It is also possible that these things are part of the stagecraft that different leaders and nations obviously do by, you know, mixing things out there in the public discourse as one tool in how to influence public opinion. So it's probably somewhere in between, but I think the overall picture remains unchanged that we talked about this really fundamental central question that Trump is grappling with. He is a peacenik by nature. He doesn't like war. He doesn't like U.S. involvement. He's very much focused on domestic policy. But the world is on fire right now, and each day that goes by, he is getting a little bit sucked into that picture, and time will tell how this all unfolds.
Yeah, and he has talked a big talk with Iran, with Hamas, saying if you don't do what I say, in Hamas's case, there will be hell to pay. We didn't quite see that from the US perspective, and with Iran, you know, if you don't hit that 60-day mark to make a deal, then then you're going to have to face the consequences as well. Meanwhile, Israeli bombs have hit Iranian state media studios in Tehran, causing one of their television hosts to flee the set.
فضای غبارآلود استادیوم
Kosher, Netanyahu pointed out, well, this isn't simply any news channel, but a tool being used by the Iranian regime to push propaganda on Iranians, but extraordinary footage there.
Really not something you see every day, for sure. And, back to our theme of how in the fog of war, it's really hard to know exactly what's going on. It is clear that Israel has waged a really exquisite military campaign so far, and just the way they've been able to use intelligence coupled with their military might to execute what they have in the last few days. So for sure, we could see that being true. It is also, I'm sure, possible that the Iranian government is promoting footage like this on purpose to try and again affect public opinion, not just domestically but globally, in terms of what Israel is doing. Why are they striking media outlets as opposed to nuclear facilities or the missile bomb and things like that? So that's, I think, part of what's in the mix here. But it is a reminder either way that this is a big deal. It's a very hot conflict. The stakes are high, the risks are high, and it is escalating.
Yeah. Kosher, I also wanted to get your reaction to Donald Trump's decision to ditch Albanese at the G7. But should we really be surprised about that?
It's a fair question. It's not a good day for Prime Minister Albanese, as it wouldn't be for anybody who's on the receiving end of a public rejection, if we want to call it that. But just based on the topic we've discussed, again, the world is on fire, and there are other bigger pressing issues out there than the trade relationship between the U.S. and Australia. So I think there's some, in the Prime Minister's defense, there is truth to that the President's schedule is very busy. Things happen. He also canceled a meeting with Prime Minister Modi of India, for example, another very important country and important relationship. So I wouldn't read too much into it, but it does show that if this administration here is not able to be more proactive in developing diplomatic relationships and getting a breakthrough with the Trump administration, then it sort of spills out onto the world stage and certainly doesn't make them look particularly strong.
No, it doesn't. Well, let's look more closely at US politics now. And 57-year-old Vance Boulter, the man suspected of shooting two state Democrat politicians in Minnesota, has been arrested after a 2-day manhunt, which saw authorities track him into rural woodlands. What more do we know, Kosher? Are there any more insights at this stage into his motivation for these attacks?
So the story is still unfolding and developing. Different officials have come out and said that they have reason to believe that it certainly was politically motivated. They're being a little bit tight-lipped about what more that means underneath it. Allegedly, reportedly, there was a notebook that had been recovered from his possessions that had a target hit list of other political leaders that apparently he wanted to come after or was thinking about going after. Those names haven't been released yet officially, so we don't know. There's different reports and rumors out there of who it might be, which might shed some more light. I think one of the most curious things about this case is that the state senator from Minnesota that he did assassinate and her husband, she is a Democrat, a lifelong Democrat. However, she just came out hours before her assassination and voted as the sole Democrat in favor of a Republican majority bill in the state Senate. So read into that what one may. It's tricky to exactly figure out what he's doing, but it sounds like just another example of violence. It tends to be coming from the left right now, whether you look at the assassination of the United Healthcare CEO or other cases, but we don't know all the details yet.
Yeah, and also the fact that Vance Boulter was reportedly a Tim Walz appointee to one of his boards as well. But yeah, a lot more to run on this case, no doubt. Now, Donald Trump has directed federal authorities to ramp up deportations in blue cities, saying on his platform Truth Social, the US must expand efforts to detain and deport illegal aliens in America's largest cities, such as Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York, where millions upon millions of illegal aliens reside. Kosha, given we've seen the violent protests over the past week in the US, how do you think this move will go down there?
It is going to continue to be the firestorm that it is. I think it's a stark reminder to everybody how difficult this is. Again, like the big picture is America has something like 40+ million illegals in its country. About 10 million of them came in the last 4 years under Biden willfully because that was the policy. That's the only thing we can interpret from that. And look how difficult it is to get them out once they come in. The public sentiment has completely shifted. Even lifelong Democrats, moderates, center-left independents are all in favor of mass deportations. It's a shift that I haven't seen in my lifetime in terms of how quickly that's happened. So the public support is on Trump's side, but the logistics and the mechanics of getting it done is really, really difficult because of these protests, because of judges overruling or issuing these nationwide injunctions and all the rest of it. So this fight is not going to be easy, but he is going straight to the belly of the beast, which is these blue states. These Democrat states are sanctuary cities, infamously, where they just defy federal immigration law and law enforcement. And so that's where he's going, and he's got 3.5 years left to do it.
Well, speaking of one person who's definitely not in support of these mass deportations, New York State Attorney General Letitia James, who's facing a federal probe at the moment into allegations she engaged in mortgage fraud. She is investigating now local police for misconduct. The misconduct being allegedly helping the Trump administration to crack down on illegal immigration by cooperating with ICE and other border agencies. Kosha, what did you make of this?
She is still clinging to that sanctuary city mantra that guided New York, a very famous sanctuary city and state, along with California and Illinois and others, and she's still clinging to that. She is somebody who has gone down in infamy as the Attorney General presiding over a state that has had an increase in crime and poorly managed budget and so many other things. And what did she do? She went after then candidate Trump and his business, in which there was no harm, there were no victims, the whole thing where he allegedly overvalued the value of his properties to the banks, even though he paid back the interest, got that conviction, which is now working its way up the court and I think will be dismissed. But she did that. And then the irony is really delicious that she's the one now being investigated for mortgage fraud. And then on top of that, now she's doing this. So she's not going to go down without a fight, but she is not a figure who is empathetic, and she certainly has not covered herself in glory.
No, she certainly has not. Very quickly, we're almost out of time, but former Democrat governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, is facing an ethics complaint over his alleged failure to disclose the more than $2.6 million in stock options he has in advanced nuclear technology before launching his New York mayoral campaign. Kosha, how damaging are these accusations?
It doesn't help, and it's just a pile-on a series of things he's had in a fall from grace. At one point, he was a front runner for Democrat leadership, and this is just piling onto him. So he's definitely down and out from the party.
Another person not exactly covered in glory. Kosha Gada, always great to speak to you. Thank you for your time.